Mike knew it was coming. The curse that afflicted him was days away, and he needed to prepare. He had chains, a cage, silver, and everything the book said he needed. The basement blacked out from light. Maybe the absence of light would lessen the effects. Maybe he could keep his mind, if it was in the pitch dark. It was only 3 months ago that his curse started. The first time was the most jarring. He had memory only of pain so severe he passed out. He woke up the next morning in the woods by his house, naked and bloody. He saw the scene around himself as he lay on the pine needle floor of the forest, terrified and trembling, panicked about what may have happened the night before. His body showed no wounds when he felt himself to check, and the amount of blood around him would have been enough to kill him had it been his. His dread deepened until he noticed scraps of brown fur stuck to the matted ground around him, and walked around the tree he was laid under to find the white-tailed carcass that was practically only bones, antlers, and fresh gore. Mike's thoughts, still clouded and confused, could only think that at least the worst crime he committed last night was poaching. He washed himself in the creek and started towards home, still in the buff, but home was only 2 miles through private woods. He lived in a small farmhouse in a rural Appalachian community with plenty of ways to keep out of sight and hide his nudity. He got home as the sun was just finished rising, and his living room was a mess. Furniture upended, carpet ripped and filthy, front door dented from someone beating their way out. He called around to see if anyone had noticed anything weird the night before. Subtle questions, with an explanation of a blackout due to mixing shine and wine, was all most of his neighbours and friends needed to dissuade any suspicion. His Meemaw was the only one that didn't seem satisfied with that answer. "Michael, you ain't much of a drinker." It wasn't a question. "Why'd you do a damn fool thing like drinking a whole jar of shine after you had wine with dinner? That doesn't sound like you. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, Meemaw. I just went to blast some steam and went a little overboard, that's all." Michael hated lying to his grandma, but explaining that he'd woke up naked, covered in deer blood, 2 miles from his house, and was suspiciously full, wasn't something he thought her 80-year-old heart could take. He was freaked out for sure, but he couldn't be a werewolf. Those were made up. Plus, he hadn't been bit by any wolves or dogs or anything bigger than a mosquito since he was a kid. Despite his disbelief, he figured setting up trail cams and sleeping outside, strapped in a hammock during the next full moon, wasn't a bad idea. The sun went down, and he was still human. He shook himself. Of course he was. What a silly thought that he could be a werewolf. He laughed to himself and went to pack his things to go inside. Then the pain hit him. His whole body shook and convulsed as he dropped to the ground, feeling like someone had taken a pitchfork to his guts and started twirling them like spaghetti on a fork. The pain went to his extremes, shot down his legs and arms, and finally his face, and then he blacked out again. This time he woke up minutes later, but it wasn't his body anymore. He was conscious, but a passenger in the furry black body. His body stood up without him thinking to do it. He tried to shake his head, but it didn't sway. And then he was hit by the hunger. He had never felt so starved and ravenous in his life, and his body lurched forward and roared a guttural noise that sounded unnatural, dangerous, and hungry. That night, Mike was taken on a hunt as a spectator, but he felt everything the beast driving what was at one point his body felt. He felt the blood of rabbits drip down his neck, and the bones crunched between his teeth. He could taste blood and hear the cries of terror and pain from the animals the beast hunted and ate. He felt the other occupant of his brain radiate joy and ecstasy of each successful hunt and the momentary relief from the hunger. After each kill, the hunger came back as soon as the last bite was swallowed, and the hunt began again. As dawn approached, the beast caught the scent of a sweeter prey. It barreled in the direction of the scent it found irresistible. Mike knew the smell but couldn't place it, which terrified him even more. He knew what direction they were headed. They were headed towards his neighbour's property. So far, the beast only went on public lands and his own, but he was making a beeline for his neighbour's house. He struggled to stop, screaming in his head, but the beast didn't even seem to notice his attempts. As they got close to the next farm, The first ray of sun crept over the horizon, and the beast was hit by exhaustion. It slowed, fell forward, crawled, and eventually everything went black again for both of them. Mike woke back up in his own body, seeming not too much time had passed, judging by how low the sun still was. He knew now that he was a werewolf. That wasn't a dream. It wasn't a drug or drink-induced trip. He was cursed, and he had 28 days to prepare for his next transformation. He thought of who could help him, talking to himself as he jogged back to his home. Mimor is spiritual, into all that supernatural shit, but her crystals and herbs were all hillbilly nonsense. This right here is real. Do I see a doctor? Hell, I don't have insurance. If I don't end up as a lab rat locked up, I'm gonna have to look up every bit of folklore on this as I can. He got home, washed up, and went to his laptop. After 2 hours, he realized just how much werewolf porn exists. Jesus, these people ain't right. After turning on Safe Search and consulting as many occult and academic sources as he could find, he came up with a plan. Silver seemed to be the key to most of it, and he had a few old coins from when his papa died. He had an old stick welder and some rebar in the shed, and every day after work he would work on his setup. The day of the full moon, as he was gathering his courage to lock himself in the cage and put silver all around it, he got a call from Mimor. He looked up at the sky and saw that he didn't have long, so he declined the call, texted her that he was tired and would call her in the morning. He hoped that wasn't a lie, and went about his work. He went to the basement where he built the cage, placed coins on all the exits, wrapped chains around the cage with more silver necklaces he'd picked up at the pawn shop, and clicked every lock in place. He took all his clothes off and set them aside, and sat down to wait for the pain. He started to cry. He had kept himself so busy up until this point that he didn't give himself time to think about how this would affect the rest of his life. What if the cage didn't hold? What if the silver wasn't enough? What if it was even worse torture being trapped in a cage with the hunger? All the worry and doubt and grief hit him at once, and then his mind was wiped clean by pain. The process put him on his back again, writhing in agony. He didn't lose consciousness this time. He didn't know if it was his body acclimating to his transformation, or if it was the fact that he heard his front door open. Panic overrode his pain. Through his screaming agony, he managed to yell, "Go away! Run! It's not safe!" Before his mouth was no longer shaped to form words. The unnatural roar came forth out of his snout, and the beast tried to force his way out of the cage. That sweet smell from the last time was potent in the air. To his horror, Mike's worst fears came to pass. The sweetest smell was human flesh. This beast's preferred prey was people. His senses were overpowering. The body he was riding in had gone entirely rabid, trying to escape his makeshift enclosure. He heard a voice from upstairs yell down, "Michael, you idiot, what in the hell?" Mike's brain raced. "Oh god, no. Mimor, why? I'm gonna kill her and there's nothing I can do to stop it." If he had control of his body, he would have been sobbing, but all he could do was watch the beast try to bend the bars and screech in frustration and hunger. Minutes passed like hours. He could hear rustling in the kitchen. The beast tested the cage's stability, but the wells held. The bars would bend, but not enough to get through. The silver did nothing, as far as he could tell. The basement door opened, and the beast clawed and snarled and grasped as Mimor slowly descended the stairs, clutching the rail for support with one hand and her cane in the other. A tote bag in lieu of her purse slung over her shoulder. The beast snapped its jaws and furiously reached his arms through the bars, grasping in the direction of the old woman. Mike was both furious and terrified. What in the hell did she think she was doing? He was so mad that she wouldn't protect herself and get away. She was only making the beast more furious as she got closer. Mimor arrived at the bottom of the stairs and turned to look at the cage. Her sour expression, pursed lips and sharp eyes looked him up and down before she rolled her eyes and shook her head. She mumbled to herself as she reached into the tote bag. "Damn fool boy doing damn fool shit. I always gotta clean up after these idiots. You think I was a damn maid." The beast was livid. the hunger making it drool and reach ever harder through the bars, scraping its skin, and trying to reach just a little further. Mike watched in shock as his grandmother pulled out a pair of jeans from the tote and said in a loud, irritated voice, the kind she used to scold children who had made a mess, "Michael William Jackson, put some damn pants on and come get something to eat. I have stew on the stove and you better get your act together and get moving." It was like he'd been slapped in the face. Did this crazy old lady think... He didn't have a chance to finish his thought before he realized the beast had stopped. It was cowed, whined like a sad puppy, and he felt his body changing back to human. "Well, boy, you better hurry up." Meemaw was not a patient woman, it seemed. The transformation back was quite painless, and as the last of his joints popped back into their original configuration, and his face remembered it was human, Mike stood dumbfounded, staring at Meemaw. "What the hell just happened?" Meemaw's expression softened now that he was human again. "You were cursed. Seen it before. Now put your clothes on and come get some supper." As they ate, Meemaw explained that her crystals and herbs were in fact not entirely bullshit. They were, partially, but that was to keep people from getting ideas. Nobody cares about a Appalachian Hills witch if they think she's just a crazy old lady. That doesn't mean the old ways are forgotten. Mike had pissed off the forest folk near his house, and they cursed him to be a werewolf in the old sense. Silver was fantasy. The light of the full moon had nothing to do with it, but every 28 days, he would have to watch himself lose control and evolve into a monster. Meemaw knew what was sacred, and providing a name, clothes, and food to a cursed person would clear it up. You didn't name and care for a monster. They finished their supper, and when she rose to leave, she gave Mike a big hug around his middle, smiled up at him, "I love you, child," then smacked him upside the back of his head. "Next time you get yourself in some shit, you call me, you idiot."